So let's dive into SpyGate, okay? There is this criminal investigation we've heard has been begun by John Durham. What are the implications of this?
Well, the senior leadership of the FBI and the CIA and the Justice Department, and who knows what other agencies, need to be very concerned about this. Brennan, Clapper, Comey, McCabe, Strzok Page, obviously, Loretta Lynch, anyone involved in the FISA-gate targeting of Trump, or generally the counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign as it relates to Russia. Because remember what Mr. Barr, Attorney General Barr, said he was investigating: the origins and the decision-making to open this extraordinary counterintelligence investigation, which was really just an excuse to try to put Trump in jail, on whether there was Russia collusion between the Trump world and Russia collusion with Trump world. Now we've learned, after a preliminary review by his designee, U.S. Attorney Durham, that there's evidence of criminal activity warranting further investigation. Well, that's tremendous news, in the sense that everyone have you believe it was legitimate, and they're just complaining that he was being targeted. They had a good faith-based reason to investigate him. Well, not according to this Justice Department investigation. Crimes were committed, evidently. Look, we're expected to believe that they had a good faith basis to target Trump. Well, now we're getting evidence from the Justice Department, certainly their public statements or the leaks to the New York Times and other publications, that there's evidence that there are crimes behind the targeting of Trump. Well, there's only a limited number of people who they could be targeting in that regard, and they're all names we would know. And so I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'm hopeful there will be prosecutions, because, the conspiracy and the violations of law are legion in my view. And in many ways, this is what I think the coup is about. They used Mueller to try to freeze the Justice Department, and I think they're using the coup to try to make the Justice Department, make it harder for the Justice Department to investigate the crimes behind SpyGate.
Very, very interesting. So, you recently obtained, speaking of, some of the names that we should know, the text messages between Strzok and Page, some new batches of these.
Yeah, I think there were emails, and they were emails that we were told didn't exist because Bruce Orr, whose wife Nellie Orr worked for Fusion GPS, and despite that, he was heavily involved in basically laundering the Clinton spy ring information into the Justice Department and FBI. He testified that he had a meeting or two with Strzok. So we asked about this, and the Justice Department comes back and says, we don't have any records. And so, we said, look, there's a discussion about what went on here, that there was a communication of some type. So the Justice Department says that we don't have records. We say that's not to be believed. We're suing in court, and lo and behold, the Justice Department finds records showing that Strzok, Page, and Bruce Orr were working together on, it looks like, Russiagate, which is, as I say, the illegal targeting of President Trump. It's magic, Oh, we don't have the records. We sue. Oh, I guess we do have the records.
It's also been reported that John Durham is very, quote unquote, very interested in Brennan and Clapper, these two officials.
Well, this is my theory of the case.
Okay.
Whenever you hear the other side say that there was, quote, Russia intelligence sources saying that the Russians were working with the Trump campaign, you should discount that. And I think what they've concluded, and I suspect what the evidence will show, is that there was never really any intelligence justifying an investigation into Trump-Russia collusion. It was all material manufactured by the Obama FBI or CIA, people that they were running, either confidential informants or assets, and obviously the Clinton DNC, Fusion GPS operation, that was probably just recycling that material. I call it, you saw this in the FISA-gate warrants. So look, they say, here's our evidence, Your Honors, to justify this extraordinary spy operation targeting President Trump. Well, we've got the dossier. Oh, we've got a report about the dossier. Oh, we had a communication with the Senate about the dossier. Oh, it looks like the State Department was actually using the dossier too and creating a dossier based on the dossier. So that's 4 pieces of information. Well, you know, that's like asking who are your sources and you telling me, myself, and I. And I call it the self-licking ice cream cone. They're kind of generating the dirt, using reports and reactions to that dirt and their investigation of that dirt to say, hey, look, there's something there. And it's just a circular investigative activity, but horribly corrupt.
Do you think it's possible, given this interest in Clapper and Brennan and so forth, that this went all the way to the top?
Oh, Obama knew. He for sure knew. You know, that last IG report on James Comey's stealing and leaking FBI files on President Trump, including classified information, lying about it, included Comey's admission he went and confronted then President-elect Trump with the dossier.
Right.
Not to report to him about what's going on, but to see if you could catch him in a reaction that would help him, frankly, be prosecuted or targeted further. Kind of a spy operation against the president. Well, you know who he met with the day before that took place? The President of the United States, Barack Obama. They all met in the Oval Office. Obama, Biden, I think Susan Rice was there, obviously Comey, I think Brennan and Clapper were there, and they all talked about the dossier. So this was an Obama job. It wasn't a deep state job. Obama's responsible.
What are the implications of this in your mind? I mean, this is.
Well, I don't think Obama's going to be indicted, but I tell you what, if you're talking about impeaching presidents, that's the sort of thing you need to be considering. So rather than admit to the terrible scandal and misconduct and potential crimes of the prior administration, they're targeting the president who was the victim of those crimes. What a terrible day for justice.
You know, there's a lot of information out there now related to SpyGate and so forth, and on my mind, I think on everybody's mind, because it was supposed to come out at the end of the month originally, is of course the Horowitz report. And, you know, so he's concluded this investigation into the FISA, potential FISA abuse and so forth. It's being classified, you know, as we speak. What are your expectations of the Horowitz report?
Well, I think they're going to confirm what's already known in the public record, that, because remember what we already know, that the FISA-Gate applications, the FISA applications were fraudulent, because we've got key portions of them already being released. We already know that the FBI had fired the key person behind the FISA warrant applications, Christopher Steele. He created the dossier. They didn't really tell the court the full nature of what he was up to and the full background on that. So all of that's kind of already out there. Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to conclude that the FISA court was defrauded. I think what's going to be interesting to know if there were other FISA warrants, because remember, the only FISA warrant the government's admitted to is the one against Carter Page. Right. Many people believe there's at least 4 or 5 FISA warrants out there, including against General Flynn. We asked for instance, the FISA warrant, if there was a FISA warrant on General Flynn, and the response from the agency was they couldn't confirm or deny it. So it doesn't mean yes, there was, but they ain't telling us whether there was a FISA warrant or not.
You know, one of the things that...
So I guess my point on this is, we think we know the full scope of the FISA-Gate corruption. My guess is there were other FISA abuses that we're going to learn about because of the IG report.
A number of people are concerned, including Senator Grassley at one point. You remember he suggested that, why is this I think he was thinking, why is this taking so long? He's worried that there might be an attempted deep sixth. I think he used that term, the report. I know you're very skeptical of the government readily providing information. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to see what the report is like and whether it's sufficiently transparent. All we can do is wait and see. I mean, there's a process, and unsurprising to a group that spends years litigating Freedom of Information Act requests, it's going on longer than the public wants. You know, welcome to our world.
I'm wondering if you could clarify one thing. I think for our audiences, this is something for you and I, we probably are somewhat clear on it, but there's a pretty stark distinction between what Horowitz is doing and what Durham is doing. I'm wondering, from your level of expertise, if you could just kind of explain that.
Well, Horowitz doesn't have subpoena power necessarily. He can't require people who've left government to talk to him. He is, in theory, focusing on a more narrow issue than what U.S. Attorney Durham would be able to investigate. Now that this is escalated into a criminal investigation, at least under Durham, he can bring in grand juries, he can get other resources assigned to him to help answer the questions that he has about the potential crimes or evidence of crimes that he's evidently already found. So, look, the FISA warrants are just one aspect of the spy operation against President Trump. There's a whole lot of other things that went on. For instance, unmaskings, where you had intelligence reports and American citizens getting caught up in foreign intelligence surveillance and then having their identities wrongly revealed to Obama appointees who are seemingly using the NSA spy operation to Google any dirt they could get on Trump world. I hope Durham's looking at that.
We were just speaking with Congressman Nunes about that. Obviously, he was very important to finding those unmasking.
No, and remember, they were lying to Congress about what they were doing or keeping them in the dark, which suggests misconduct. They didn't tell President Trump what they were doing in terms of any concerns they had about Russia attempts to influence his campaign. They had an obligation under the law to brief him on that. Indeed, President Obama, he directed his people to think about ways to keep material from President Trump. Unbelievable corruption.